came by the trolley. But by the early 1960s, buses had replaced most of the trolleys in the Pittsburgh area. September 5th, 1965 saw the end of an era as the last trolley came to Westview Park. But however you got there, at long last there came a time when you were old enough for the real ride. Well, let's see if they're as much fun now as we remember. Hold on, and may the fastest train win. We're off for a ride on the Whippet. Remember the aeroplane? A ride almost guaranteed to make you dizzy or turn your stomach. And often both. How about these favorites? The Bug. The Rocco plane. The Scrambler. This one was well named. And, of course, the Tilt-A-Whirl. For those who like their thrills in the dark, you could take a ride through the haunted house. Or, if you were brave enough, you could take a walk through Boot Hill. From the Alpine Sky Ride, you can see the Midway at a glance. Look over where you've been and plan where you're going next. There was still lots to do. You could say that a day at Westview Park was one big magic carpet ride. For a change of pace, we'll go to the arcade for a while. Maybe pose for a picture. or try for a prize at Fascination. And finally, back in the sun again for a round of miniature golf. And maybe a pleasant drive in the antique cars. When this ride was added in the early 60s, part of Lake Placid had to be filled in to make room for it. Were you one of the thousands who got their very first kiss in the dark when the cover came over the Caterpillar? Oh, Westview Park. Westview Park. Those years of youth and innocence. When all our lives... It's late afternoon now, and we don't want to miss the few last rides. First, a ride around the lake on the miniature train. In later years, the little diesel engine was replaced by an old-fashioned steam engine. And a final ride in the dark as we visit Davy Jones' locker. As we head back down the Midway, we'll catch a quick ride on the Whip. Of course, everyone loves the scooters. Yes, this was Westview Park as it appeared in the 50s and 60s. And as we move ahead, hey, did you think we'd forgotten something? Something like one more ride, maybe? One more spectacular, wonderful, exciting ride on a roller coaster called the Dips. Wow! Wasn't that first hill great? And don't forget those repeat rides. In the fading light, many are tired and ready to go home. But for others, there's still time for a few more rides before the fireworks. as much to us then as it does now. Perhaps it might still be here. For as we look back now, we can only ask, what happened to Westview Park? There are no easy answers to that question. Perhaps the best is to say that simply time happened to Westview. By the late 1960s, the amusement park industry was struggling to adapt to changing times and the changing world. Higher expectations and wants of customers were compounded by higher insurance rates and taxes. To remain competitive, parks had to constantly expand, adding bigger and more exciting rides. Across the country, many long-established parks that had lasted for generations failed in the 60s. A few that had enough land and money to expand survived. Parks like Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. And Kennywood survived because they spent millions on improvements and new rides. Smaller parks like Westview competed as best as they could. Even into the early 70s, Westview was adding new rides. But the times were changing too much, too fast, and Westview Park simply had too much going against it. Attendance at the park declined steadily in the 70s as the baby boomers grew up and school populations declined. Many schools that once held regular outings at Westview Park either closed or consolidated into larger school districts. And most of these were taking their students to Kennywood. Fewer and fewer companies had picnics, and those who did mostly went to Kennywood. The park's location in a narrow valley prevented any major expansions. In those final years, even fate seemed to be against the park. On October 3rd, 1973, the Dance Land burned to the ground in a spectacular 8-alarm fire. What had once been one of the park's most popular attractions was now little more than charred wood, ashes, and memories. Dance Land was not replaced. At a time when dancing was becoming popular again and could draw crowds, Westview Park no longer had a dance hall. Somehow, Westview Park hung on through the middle of the 70s. But by 1977, it was clear that the end was coming. The park simply could no longer afford to go on. Labor Day, 1977. The last day of the season. The last day of an era. The last day of T.M. Harton's long, beautiful dream. That day, when the gates of Westview Park closed, the "See you next year" sign was not put up. It was no longer needed. The winter that followed will be long and cold and empty. For Westview Park, the season was over forever. Throughout the winter, rumors came and went that something would happen, that the park would somehow reopen. But through those same winter months, those hopes were dashed as one by one the park rides were sold, dismantled, and removed. The following spring, for the first time in over 70 years, Westview Park's midway lay silent. Where once the air was filled with the laughter of thousands, now there were only echoes and memories. Paint peeled from empty buildings, and weeds grew in the crumbling pavement. The wind blew sadly through the timbers of the great coasters. More than a year after the park closed, there would be one last ride at Westview Park. In the fall of 1978, a group of visiting roller coaster enthusiasts cleared away the weeds and the brush and took a final ride on the Kitty Dips. Over the next several years, all that remained of Westview Park slowly vanished from the earth. Westview Park is gone now, but certainly not forgotten. And it's good to know that bits and pieces of the park live on, bringing joy to thousands of visitors to other parks around the country. The Caterpillar, remodeled somewhat and renamed the Cosmotron, now runs at Knoebels Grove, Ellisburg, Pennsylvania. Remember how the train ran under the dips? Today, that same train runs under the Cannonball coaster at Lake Winnipesaukee Park near Chattanooga, Tennessee. Closer to home, both the Jolly Caterpillar and the Kitty Turtle still bring laughter to children at nearby Conneaut Lake Park. Today, only a shopping center and a parking lot mark the site where once stood one of Pittsburgh's best-loved amusement parks. And a curious sign with a picture of a roller coaster on it. Westview Park is gone now, but the memories linger. And sometimes, if you stand there on a warm summer afternoon, smelling the air and listening to the gentle breeze, you may yet catch a whiff of popcorn. Hear, far away or deep in your heart, the faint sounds of band organs and children's laughter. And if you listen just right, yes,